looks weird.
We're live.
Okay.
Hi. Good evening, everyone. Ta! Here we are. And hi. So, this is the first ever MrMenno meets with Laura Becker, which is German for
Baker.
baker.
But I prefer to be called Funk God.
Funk God. And it's not every day that you're in the presence of the divine.
Not every day.
But here I have a veritable funk god
That's right.
in my bedroom.
Yes.
Cheers.
Cheers.
And we're having
Alcohol. I don't know what it is.
We're having apple and pear juice, never from concentrate, with amaretto, almond liqueur.
To me, it's just alcohol.
But you have a very sweet tooth.
Yeah, I do.
I have a very sweet tooth. And I have very special biscuits that I hand imported from the Netherlands.
They're very good.
And there's not going to be any of them left.
No.
And you've only been here a few hours.
Yes.
But look at these. These are like proper Hansel and Gretel kind of.
Yes.
What
They're
would you call
buttery.
them?
They're buttery and like they have a Bavarian pretzel-esque quality, which I love. I'm obsessed with Bavarian pretzels and cheese.
They are amazing, and I saved them for a special occasion. So here we are. So, ladies and gentlemen, and that's enough, ladies and gentlemen. That's enough. Nothing else needs to be said. Obviously, we're here to have a chat about Laura's experiences going down a medical path to, I guess, find yourself.
Yeah. It happened eventually, yeah.
It happened eventually. So we're going to be talking about this. You're 26?
Yeah.
That sounds so young to me because that's 20 years ago for me. And just a quick context. I mean, some of you may already know Laura. If you do, say hello in the chat. But Laura started questioning at 16, came out as trans. I can't do it without the fingers. Transsexual even. At 18, went on to testosterone at 19 and had a double mastectomy at 20. So we'll go more into that journey, if you like, the story, and how you then came to realize that's not it.
Yeah, it's not it.
But first, but this is obviously just one aspect of Laura's life. Laura has many other things.
A lot of things.
An artist, which is why I'm very pleased to have you here and to be chatting. Hopefully, we'll get to chat a bit just about art as well.
Yeah.
And a writer, and now also a detrans and mental health advocate. And I think we need the mental health advocacy. And I'm so glad that you're speaking out about your experiences. And I mean, I keep seeing you pop up, like
Popping up all over the place and popping off.
that means farting in the UK.
No, well, I'm not. I'm American, so that's your problem.
Well, if you fart here, then that is my problem.
Yeah. I'll try to be polite.
I can't blame what you've eaten because I've cooked for you.
That's true. That's true.
Anyways, so let's start with last week. So last week, as you may be aware, there was a big conference in Ireland. How do you pronounce that name of that place?
Killarney.
Organized by GenSpect. That went on for 3 days, and you were there. You were on the Detrans panel.
Yes.
So tell me about what that was like, because that was the first time you've actually left the States, huh?
Yes, the first time I've traveled internationally.
Wow. Let me just. Oh, this is. I'm getting an email to say that I'm live.
Yeah, just so you know.
With Fun God. Okay. Thank you very much for that notification. Okay. So yes, tell us, what was it? What was sort of your thoughts when you were on the plane going
When I was on
there?
the plane,
Yeah.
I was having ruminations because it was an 8-hour flight, and they said there'd be Wi-Fi, and there wasn't Wi-Fi the entire flight. And as a Twitter addict, didn't know what to do with myself, and so I was having ruminatory thoughts because I couldn't sleep because I'm a night owl. It was an overnight flight, and so those were my thoughts. I'm just like, because if I'm left alone with myself too long, it's just not a good deal.
Okay. So
Yeah,
then you open Twitter and
and I couldn't get on because
wow,
there's no Wi-Fi for 8
there's
hours.
no refreshing of the
Yeah, I
feed.
couldn't access the feed, and I couldn't tweet my thoughts. So I was like, what can I do for all this time? And so the only thing downloaded on my phone was Candy Crush from like a while ago.
Candy Crush.
Yeah,
I used to love
no,
that.
it's great, but
Divine.
you only have so many lives though. And so
Tasty.
yeah, and so I had to like really preserve those lives as long as I could because I couldn't buy any new ones because I
Right,
couldn't.
because you don't have
It was
Wi-Fi.
like, yeah.
See, I stopped playing Candy Crush when I was in the shower, and I've got like I used to have a shower curtain with a mosaic
Mhm.
of different colors, different colored blocks. And one day I'm in the shower and I thought, oh, if I move this here and I move those there,
Oh my
I can have a
god.
super. Yeah,
Oh my god.
that's when
Yeah.
I stopped playing
No, I mean, I must say their
Candy
marketing is,
Crush.
like, better than almost any other that I've seen. Like, if you're a child on that app, like, the amount of pop-ups and things,
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, it's clever stuff.
it's great.
Um, but you survived the flight.
Yes.
What did you do?
I I played Candy Crush as much as I could,
Yeah.
and Soda Crush as well,
So
its cousin, which is great. And then I finally got in, and then I became pretty excited because then I got to be on Twitter and say like, who else is going on this train from Dublin to Killarney at this time? And it turns out a lot of people, and me and like 4 or 5 other detransitioners, some of whom I knew from Twitter, some I didn't know. We all sat together on a train for like 3 or 4 hours and just talked about some real shit.
oh, nice. So you didn't have that. So you had others with you on the train journey. Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
but we all just kind of found each other at the station.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, it was really a magical experience. Like, to me, it felt kind of like a family reunion. Not that I've met everybody, but it's like we're all sort of in this movement and tribe, and different little factions know each other better. But for me, it was a family reunion because all of my friends and mentors and even therapists that I've met online for years.
Mhm.
We got to physically meet in person for this historical conference, this event. And honestly, it was just really magical. It was just extremely powerful for everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's quite interesting when there's people that you've never met, but you've communicated so much online, and then suddenly you're face to face.
Yeah. Like, you guys have been reading my trauma tweets for like 2 years. And
And we still want to talk to
and
you.
yeah, they still want to talk to me. That's what I think to myself too. I'm like, yeah, they stick around. They've been following me this whole time, even through all the horny posts and all of the shit posts. And it's mostly those two things,
Mhm.
with also like insights about gender ideology.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was beautiful, and the conference was really slick because it was set up right at the same time and location as the WPATH
Yes,
conference.
the EPAF
The
thing.
EPATH, the
Yeah.
European version of WPATH, EPATH conference. And so it was very much making a statement to all of these, our sort of ideological opponents, and saying like, we're here. And people directly addressed you know the opponents, like, during the live stream and the video.
Wow.
It is very much like, we're here, we know you're ignoring us, and we're going to keep talking anyway.
Yeah. Were there, was it just right across the road from the street, or was it like
um
walking distance?
it wasn't that far. It was in the same town, and
Okay.
a couple people from our conference went over there,
Yeah.
and a couple people from, well, at least there were invitations that were sent out. I don't know how many people from EPATH came over to ours,
Yeah.
but anyone who was going to EPATH could receive a free ticket to come to GenSpec's conference. I don't know how many took up on it though.
Okay. And it went on for 3 days.
Yes. So it was 3 days of um, speakers, and then some lunch breaks, and then every night a lot of Guinness every night. And then again at 9 in the morning, more speakers, panel discussions, presentations by just a variety of really intellectual people, endocrinologists,
Mhm.
pediatricians, psychologists, journalists,
Um,
uh, sexologists. Ken Zucker was there,
mhm,
um, Helen Joyce, obviously people from Gen Spect, and then there was a
mhm.
detransition panel at the end of the first day,
Okay.
um, hosted by Benjamin Boyce.
Okay. He's spoken to loads of
Yeah.
detransitioners on his channel. How did he get into that?
I don't know exactly how we got into the detransition. I know how we got into his, podcasting, but I actually really don't know how we started talking to
Mm.
detransitioners.
And so you're there, and at the end of the first day was the detransitioner panel.
Yeah.
How many were there on the panel?
There was me, Richie, Michelle, Jet, Camille, and Helena. So there was
Okay.
6,
From the UK, the States,
and
the
the
Netherlands,
Netherlands. Yeah.
and Canada as well?
Yeah, Canada. Yeah.
Okay, wow.
Mhm.
Was this the first time that you were, because you've been speaking out for a few years. Was this the first time you were together with a group of detransitioners, or have
No,
you
it
done
wasn't
that
the
before?
first time. I've been on a couple other panels and groups, but this was, it definitely felt bigger than the other ones just because there were some like people that had been around even longer than me, like Helena and
Yeah,
Michelle, are I consider sort of founders of, the advocacy, and then me, I kind of come in there, and then Richie and
yeah.
these people.
And do you find it's, when you were staying in the same place?
Yeah, we were all pretty much staying in the same Airbnb.
And when like on the panel, um, do you find that there's it's easy to relate to one another, um, but at the same time you're all completely different individuals? What are sort of the commonalities, would you say?
Um, well, all of us are misfits in our own sense. That's all kind of why we transition, and all of us are very cerebral. So we think a lot.
Mhm.
We thought our way into, the ideology, and then we thought our way out of it. And all of us have the shared experience of being in this surreal position of being public speakers talking about our medical trauma,
Yeah,
which is not something typically most people don't fly around like internationally to talk about their medical trauma and have a conference about it,
yeah,
and talk to journalists and all this. So all of us kind of share those experiences, as well as we're all very online and we know each other on Twitter, and um, have been communicating on there for a long time.
yeah,
So we're all definitely unique individuals, but we have a shared sense of camaraderie. At least the public detransitioners really do, because it's such a absurd position to be in, and
yeah,
also the hate we get
yes.
is just absurd. So
Yeah. I've seen some of that online, um, some of the abuse that Michelle gets.
yeah,
Michelle is a Canadian detransitioner. Um, the shit that Richie gets. And a few weeks ago, we were talking about this earlier. There was a gay guy in the States. He's only 30, and he started um, putting some videos up on Twitter. And within 2, 3 days, he took his Twitter down because the level of abuse he got was off the scale. I mean, I get some, but it's just negligible, I think, compared to what other people get. To me, they just say, "Oh, you're just jealous that you never had the balls to transition." I'm like, "Well, I have the balls because I didn't transition, and I'm very happy about that." But the stuff I've seen them, the abuse that gets leveled at detransitioners is off the scale. But I wanted to talk about that a bit later, to
Mhm.
see how you deal with that. But I guess what's so important is that when you meet, especially in real life, you can give each other that support network
Mhm.
that I guess you won't find anywhere else, because who else can understand
Yeah.
but people that've gone down that path?
Yeah, I mean, we consider it to be very grassroots. I mean, pretty much all of us started just doing, smaller interviews or like going on Benjamin Boyce and writing our Substacks and just sort
Yeah.
of growing from there. So we all try to do our own thing and be autonomous, but, um, we all kind of want to make it detransitioner, you know, detransitioners making things for detransitioners. Like
Yeah.
it's very um, autonomous in the community.
I just want to say a thank you to Dusty Masterson for your 10 British pounds. Do you want to read out the
And Dusty says, "Well done, Laura. The
panel?
panel.
Mm.
Yeah, I'm gonna call out your typo there. The panel session was great. Thank you, Dusty.
Oh, Dusty was there. Yes,
Oh, were you?
he must have been.
Well, it was live streamed as well.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I spoke to Dusty very briefly on Sunday, last Sunday in Hyde Park.
Mm,
Dusty, let us know if you were actually there,
yeah.
or if you saw it online. What were some of the? I mean, earlier you said something about earlier this afternoon when we were talking how it felt like a family reunion,
Yeah.
being there with people face to face. So after you left, did you feel there must have been quite a few things going through your mind? Was it like you felt topped up with support or having been listened to? What was it? How did you feel
I
about
mean,
that?
just throughout the entire thing, and even just before, like anticipating it, it was just a shared energy. Everyone was just, we knew it was going to be so communal and unified and, full of love and friendship. And then it was honestly exceeded my expectations, which is hard to do because I'm pretty idealistic. But, just throughout the entire thing, it was just profoundly serendipitous. And not only with the other detransitioners but with other friends, allies, um in this movement, and the people, the organizers of GenSpect, and the parents, and just all these people that I've befriended in our own kind of quirky relationships. And I got to meet, a highlight for me was meeting my good friend Vincent, who I actually did a podcast with a few
Mhm.
years ago. And he is a nearly 50-year-old man from South Africa. And so we had this interesting relationship, and then actually meeting in person, we kind of spent almost the whole time together because it was just
Mm.
like, and we hadn't even talked for a while because things just get busy. He's become a therapist, so, and I've been doing therapy my own. So it was just really beautiful. I felt so full of love, and I felt just really, abundant, and I felt really optimistic, and really, really, I guess, full of, like genuine pride, like from a feeling of that I've accomplished something or that I'm meaningful to people.
Yeah.
I'm getting a lot of, positive feedback from my panel and just other things I've done. And I kind of left feeling, you know, bittersweet because it's like, it's never going to, that is such a high. And
Yeah.
everyone was saying, this is a high. Like, you can't really get higher than that. Just all of that excitement and, powerful testimony and all that information. So I left feeling bittersweet. And that's why I extended my trip to come to London after that, because I knew that it was going to be a huge crash if I just went home right
Right.
away.
Yeah.
And then I ended up crashing in London. So the past couple days, I've been at a low point and very depressed. And it's just surreal to go from that amount of love and community, and then kind of feeling that inner child stuff from the past of the isolation and the complex PTSD acting up and just, going from like, I'm so loved, I have so much opportunity, my life is very meaningful, to then these intrusive thoughts of, my life is pointless, like I have nothing to look forward to, I'm so alone, like all these. So it's a really a juxtaposition. I'm kind of in the middle of like moving out of the traumatized state that I was in for a really long time, and to
Yeah.
actually having a community. Um, it's just really surreal.
Yeah, it sounds like a roller coaster.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of used to that, and my life is very odd. Um, but it was just a more. It was. I honestly, I'm trying to think of the language to describe it because it is just so moving and transcendent, and that's what me and Vincent's podcast was about. It was about transcendence.
That's
um,
that's something you mentioned when you were outside the Texas Capitol,
mm,
I think.
my speech.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've really become interested in meaning making and transcending. The way to make meaning is when you're in pursuit of a goal that you really are passionate about. So, and as I'm wearing my Jordan Peterson shirt right now,
This
just
is
plugging
fantastic,
this
by the way.
Daddy Lobster shirt, and is available in my Etsy store, Funk of God on Etsy, along with like 200 other funky, weird things.
So I saw this when you came in earlier. I just read Daddy Lobster, and I thought, what is that about? But then I saw the picture of Jordan Peterson, and
Yeah.
then straight away it
Hmm.
made sense. So it's like one of these things. Oh, sorry, my leg is stuck. Ah. Once
Yes.
you know, right?
Oh, yeah. So I'm very deep into the
You've got
Jordan's.
like Mr. Peterson.
I do. I don't call him Mr.
Yes.
Peterson, but yeah, I'm on a first name basis in my parasocial relationship with Jordan. I'll tweet to him sometimes, like if he seems really stressed out, because he always gets stressed out on there.
Mhm.
uh, You know, I'll just tweet him. I'll be like, "Hey, like you seem stressed." He's like the closest thing to a boyfriend that I have. So I'm like, "Hey, you seem stressed. Here, look at this like AI art that I made, like some just nice, like pretty thing."
Right.
Or I'll just be like, "Thank you for the work you're doing. Like it's okay to, rest or something." Like just I don't know. I have issues.
How long has he been your imaginary boyfriend?
Um, about 2 years.
Okay.
Yeah, he's my attachment figure.
What okay, so a great experience at the conference, a crash
Yeah,
when you came to London.
yeah.
Did you know people here?
Well, I did get to spend one day with my friend Sarah Vassy, who does the Metamorphosis, the Detransitioner portrait series. Um, but I could tell even then that I was crashing, and then I realized that it's partly hormonal,
Mhm.
and I'm very affected by the hormonal shifts. Um, so I didn't know any of the people that I was staying with. Um, but everyone's been lovely to me so far. We'll see how tomorrow goes, and I'm staying here tomorrow. We'll see. After he turns off the cameras, he'll kick me to the curb.
Yeah, evil minnow comes out. Well,
Um,
you've survived the spaghetti,
oh yeah, the spaghetti was
but that was
good.
only a few hours ago.
Yeah, see,
So
it's
who
been
knows? You're doing okay with that.
for
I
now. Yeah,
I got her Cheerios,
it's what I requested for breakfast is Cheerios, honey Cheerios as
honey
well.
Cheerios.
Yeah.
Um, so I guess when you have a crash like that, do you think, all right, this will pass. I'll just ride it out, or is it something that you fight against?
Both at once.
Okay,
Because I try to do
multitasking.
acceptance. It's a war that I'm fighting internally because I have the memories of the past coming up like physiologically. So it feels like there's a threat right now. It feels like I'm in danger right now when you get tunnel vision. And then the sort of healed part of me who's been through this a million times is like, all right, we're just like in this low state, like it'll pass. So really, I'm fighting really hard to not give in to the inner critic and the but it's still really difficult, especially when I'm in an unfamiliar place and so many things feel like they're changing. It's easy to feel when it's a common trauma thing when a lot of good things are happening and then you start to really doubt it because, in the past things are so unpredictable
Right.
that if something good was happening, you're like, "Oh, that's not going to last." Like,
Right. It's
so
gonna have to go wrong at some
it's
point.
going to have to go wrong, and the higher I go, the lower, the more I fall,
Mhm.
I think that's part of it too is like I'm sitting here, like people are being so kind to me. I'm in another country. Strangers are like taking care of me and doing my
Buying you
laundry,
Cheerios.
buying me Cheerios and alcohol and doing my laundry and, just being really nice. And then I'm crying because I'm like, I wasn't cared for in the past. And I just wish that I had the support that I have now or the knowledge I have now, before I, self harmed or self destructed in so many ways for like a decade.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of grief that comes up when you start to feel loved and when you're around calm, safe people. It brings out the pain because you're remembering, you're not used to it. You're not comfortable with love.
Yes.
Um,
So you might, even if it's there, you might not accept it.
yeah, it's hard to internalize it.
Yeah.
And I got a lot of compliments and praise and online and in real life. And it's just very surreal when you're getting all this praise that's saying like you're so loved, we care about you, we support you, we think you're great and talented and everything, but then inside I still feel, unlovable and not good enough.
Mm.
And it feels like, there's a lot of imposter syndrome
Right.
about it. Yeah.
Did you feel that when you were on the panel as it happened?
No.
Okay.
When I'm usually in the moment, I kind of go into my intellectual mode, which kind of helps get away from the emotions.
Mhm.
Um, so I felt really in a flow state during the panel. Um, but I will say that during some of the lectures that I was just watching, I was getting angry, because not even on my behalf, but just on the behalf of just a generation of, funky, quirky young girls that are suffering and
Mhm.
boys. But,
Mhm.
I'm angry that this is happening, that people are lying and hurting people.
Yes.
And because I have a lot of different traumas and I have the medical trauma and you know, the shame of the identity crisis and the waste of my life that several years were from that. Um, and I know how painful it is, and my friends also still aren't healed from it. Even though we talk about it all the time and understand so much,
Yeah.
we still blame ourselves for it. And it's not our fault. It's the systematic indoctrination and systematic profiteering um, off of just vulnerable people. And so I definitely got angry um, during watching some of that content.
Mm. I can imagine it be very confrontational.
Yeah. I mean, it felt all very emboldening. Pretty much most of us, at least, or if not all of us there, were like, we're just ready to, you know, blow this shit up and just expose the lies and, tell the truth about it.
Oops.
I might need another drink soon. In fact, I will, but
Waiter. um, when obviously now you can look back and see how you fell for those what you call the lies. I often talk about the gender lies. When you were a teenager, what was it that made you go, "Oh, something's wrong," or something? I don't know if that's the right way to put it, but why you couldn't see yourself as a quirky girl when, like you said earlier, what was it that made you go, "Actually, there's something wrong with me. There's something that needs to be fixed." That can only be fixed by identifying as
Mm.
someone else.
I mean, it pretty much my whole life I have felt off, I call it funky now, but I always felt like I, didn't fit in and I didn't relate to other people. I felt very alienated. And then I was diagnosed as being on the autism spectrum when I was 11. And then
Right.
I started experiencing um, familial abuse chronically and the hormonal issues and just all cascade of things. So by the time I was a teenager, I was already suicidal and self harming and abusing drugs and alcohol.
Okay.
And so essentially, there's no reason I wanted to be myself. And so someone gives you the option to be someone else, and you're already a tomboy. And I was very androphilic. Very you know uh, passionate about men and male and very sexual about that. And so it's just a fantasy, really. I mean, and
Mhm.
like I said, I was using a lot of other of the traditional, coping mechanisms like the drugs and alcohol and sleeping, eating, the internet, music. Like I was using a ton of things and they just weren't working, because
Mhm.
it's just a survival state. It's not healing it. So that it was just another maladaptive coping mechanism. Um, but it ended up just escalating. And they say that what exactly is the quote? Basically, that labeling yourself as trans causes gender dysphoria
Mhm.
because yeah, you're having discomfort and issues, but the more you fixate on being trans and needing to pass as the opposite sex, you're just scrutinizing every single thing.
Right.
Um,
Like it collapses everything into transness.
and everything is like, I'm not good enough. I don't look good enough. I'm not, my, genitalia is wrong. And even if you sort of adjust one thing, like getting a binder or, changing your name, there's still a million other things wrong with you because you're just completely, the sex that you are.
Yeah.
And so it just causes you to have more and more distress. And then I had some unrequited um, obsession slash love slash situation, just a mess with three different gay male friends of mine who
Okay.
at the time were not out as gay.
Right.
Um, and we were all identifying as queer. And so it's like this, it's very idealistic and it's very sweet in a way, very innocent in a way, not malevolent, but just, all of us are queer, but then I have attachment issues. So I fall insanely in love with these people and then they are confused and then they lead me on and then they come out as gay. Um, and then I'm confused because I thought we're all supposed to be, queer and we're
Right.
best friends. And how can you love me in these ways, but not in that way? And I have, a lot of trauma. So that was a big part of it. Um, just that desperate need to be loved. And I didn't feel like I could be loved as myself, essentially.
Yes.
And then, the ideology gives you an escape route and a way to, transform yourself. And they say this is the only cure for gender dysphoria.
Yes. Even though gender dysphoria wasn't what you were struggling with.
Well, I debate that gender dysphoria is any different than body dysmorphia.
Right. But what I mean is you had all these underlying
Yeah, there were
issues.
many other things
And
even
then
besides that. Yeah.
it all just gets collapsed into this one thing, gender
Yeah.
dysphoria. There's one treatment for it, and this is it.
Yeah.
How did you come across the trans, if you like? How did you come across the idea that that was the way?
Um, well, I spent a lot of time on Tumblr. If you couldn't tell that. I on Tumblr everyone is, it's where the misfits went originally.
Right.
Everyone was on Facebook. The artsy, weirdos went to Tumblr instead.
Okay.
So that's where I went in like 2011. And then I was really on there for a long time. And
So you were just like 14 at the time.
yeah,
Right. Okay.
so I was very online because I was very socially awkward and everything. Um, and so I'm in these communities where, everyone is a misfit. And so again, like we were talking about earlier today, the underdog, it's very much uplifting the underdog. And sort of my theory is that when same-sex marriage was legalized in the United States, that was a enormous victory. And on
Yeah.
Tumblr, it was a haven for LGBT people. But then after that, that was so normalized, especially on Tumblr. Even the fandom culture, everyone's gay, shipping people and stuff. That then trans and queer became the focus because that was more avant-garde.
Yeah.
That was more esoteric.
Oh God. Yeah.
So that started to be normalized, and then all these lists of gender identities started coming out. And of course, like as an autistic person that was really into personality and everything, I was like, ooh, get to pick out my, which label, which gender identity do I have?
Right.
So I identified as gender queer when I
Okay.
was 15, which pretty much just means androgynous.
Right.
They all just mean androgynous. But I was very androgynous. I was very funky. I was very, doing my thing. Um, and it was fine at first, but then, when it's escalating into these trauma symptoms and these fantasies and these romantic issues
Yeah.
and sexual yearnings and all that, then it started to become a problem. And I started questioning, am I transgender? Um, and then I ruminated on that for a year or two. And then when I was 18, I came out as transsexual because I did realize that I was a female
Mhm.
biologically, but I wanted to be a male. I was having gender dysphoric symptoms. I, um, I didn't feel comfortable being, anything about me. I hated myself and I was suicidal and I was desperate to cure at least some of my issues. Um, and so when I was 19, I got a free prescription of testosterone from an informed consent clinic, 200 milligrams, which is a really high
That's
dose.
really high,
It's
isn't it?
very high.
What's the typical dose that they give?
There isn't a typical dose.
Okay.
They just give it out, but 200 is still very high in general. Um, and so I injected that every week.
Yourself.
Yeah,
See, I
under
heard
my
I
thigh.
heard you say this in if you've seen the documentary Affirmation Generation, you'll have heard Laura talking about that. It's not so let's just go a few steps back. You when you okay, so you've got this thing I want to be anybody but myself, and I want that someone to be a man.
A gay man
A
specifically.
right. I wanna touch on that because
Yeah, there's plenty to talk about with
I
that.
know. To me as a gay man, that brings up lots of questions and emotions.
Yeah,
But when we talked about it earlier, part of me went, "Oh, actually, that makes sense." Um, why you would reach out for that. Like, if I was a 13, 14-year-old today with TikTok and access to all this information, I'm sure I'd identify as a pan-gender demigirl
yeah,
and want to see myself as a straight woman,
mhm,
anything but a wimpy gay guy.
yeah.
Um, did you I mean, obviously, we're sort of post-rationalizing. Did you truly believe I am a guy, or was it more like I'm desperate to be one and see how close I can get?
The latter. Like I said, I didn't I, I mean, I was confronted with my biology, my genitalia. I was obsessed with the fact that I wasn't a gay man physically, but I had this sort of, spiritual, like just, abstract sense of what a gay man was, their energy or whatever, which is, I was watching a lot of gay porn because I was just obsessed with these gay, people, people I love deeply.
Yeah.
Um, and it was just unobtainable. So it was very much I thought my personality
Yeah,
was masculine.
especially if you're watching gay porn. Like, what can be more confrontational?
Yeah, it's fucking confrontational. Like
about you will never be this.
yeah, and you're utilizing your genitalia that's not a penis to do, So I was confronted with it. So yeah, I just felt like my personality and my interest and my love and my passion for men and everything was more suited to being a gay man. And I viewed gay masculinity as extremely different than straight masculinity. And that's a
Okay.
key part of it is that I didn't view myself as a straight man at all. Because was not attracted to women at all. I really didn't like femininity whatsoever. I also didn't like straight men or trust them or
Right.
I really looked down on them. So, and gay men were sort of my friends, they were my peers, as well as basically I felt like gay men are kind of the best of both worlds because they can be, flamboyant and funny and witty and yes, and horny and passionate and dramatic and colorful, all the things that I was, but they didn't have the burden of misogyny and they could love and be loved by men. This was literally my rationale,
Okay. Yeah.
which is okay, but it's abstract and it's not tied to reality.
And it's from, well, at the time, a teenage girl's point of view.
Yeah,
Obviously, I am a gay man, and I would say that quite a bit of the homophobia that I've had and that other gay guys get is actually rooted in misogyny.
yeah,
Because if they didn't think that being so-called effeminate, which is linked to feminine, which is linked to how women should behave, if they didn't think that was a bad thing, they wouldn't give a shit for it.
right.
So, I mean, I'm not coming at this from like some philosophical academic point of view. That's just a sense that I have,
Yeah,
that the homophobia is actually rooted
that's what I think too.
in misogyny. I mean, if you get to really butch, big blokes walking down the street hand in hand, it's unlikely they're going to be called faggots.
Yeah, that's true.
But if it's me and someone else like me skipping down the street, obviously, then I mean, being gay is in a way the most emasculating thing you can do. But it's interesting for me to hear you say that gay masculinity feels very different from straight masculinity, and that gay men, I guess, in a way, among themselves, are allowed to be, don't have to be restricted by all the
Yeah,
norms of
yeah.
manliness or masculinity as
Or
much
even
as
femininity either.
straight men, right? And that together, there was something that you mentioned earlier when we're having lunch about the relationships seeming like they're more equal.
Yes, that's a huge part of it. That, you know, um, just wanting to have that reciprocated affection and love and passion that I never experienced, and also just with peers and friends, I never felt like I had peers. I always felt either better or worse than other people. I never really felt the
Mm,
same.
mhm.
And so with gay men, it seemed like, they're on the same level. There isn't that power imbalance like there is between men and women, males and females, the misogyny
Right.
and the power, the physical power. Even, I was ruminating on how the phallus is more powerful.
Ruminating on the phallus.
I still ruminate on the phallus, but just different philosophies on it. But just how the phallus had it has more, it's more dramatic, it's more powerful, there's more to be done with it in a sense, it's easier to operate versus the vulva. It's not difficult to operate, it's a little more complicated. And it felt very unequal sexually,
Mhm.
that men, can get off so easily and women cannot. And, just all this misogyny,
Right.
so it felt like two gay men would be completely equal
Yeah.
as human beings.
That's a nice idea.
Yeah.
Whether that's the reality, obviously in gay relationships, there's power dynamics like in any relationship. I would like to find the kind of equal relationship that you had in mind,
Yeah.
and then you can be the bridesmaid
Yes.
and then come
I'll
and
be very jealous though. Because I don't
okay. Oh dear. Okay.
yeah, I don't wanna
Okay.
anyone who's getting married, I'm just like,
Maybe then you just tune in via the live stream.
I'll say I watched it and be like, "Congratulations," and I'm, like, moping around.
I'm so happy for you.
Yeah, pretty much.
So then, um, I mean, to me that makes sense. It makes sense why you might look at it that way, even though it's completely off the mark.
Yeah.
But it's an romanticized idea of maybe you just watch nice gay porn because there's some real
No.
horrible stuff. Like when I see like where they like all the domination stuff.
Yeah, I was watching that mostly,
Okay,
yeah,
and they
but
treat, the guy who is the bottom, like, they call him names, and it's very degrading, and yeah, no, I really don't like that.
yeah, no. It was just a fantasy, you
Yeah.
know? It's just magical thinking,
Mhm,
and, I've always had a really good imagination, as an artist and everything, but,
mhm,
as we were saying earlier as well, like, my imagination is a dangerous thing because I do have problems with magical thinking and having such an idealistic, vision, and then I can't tangibly manifest it. It's very frustrating.
right. It's like wake up and smell the coffee, and you're like, "I wanna keep dreaming."
Yeah, exactly.
Um, there was one conversation I once had with, a woman on Twitter. This is years ago, maybe 2, 3 years ago, before I got, suspended first time. Well, first time, the only time, so hopefully there won't be
Yeah, be
another one.
careful.
But, we were, exchanging views, let me put it that way, and disagreeing, obviously, because she thinks she's a man and she thinks she's a gay man. But there was something that she said, I can't remember what it is now, but something that made me say to her, "Look, let's just if I follow you, you follow me, we can have a private conversation about this." And she's like, "Well, I'm not sure if I really want to do that because, of the stuff that you post." And then um, we did. So
Mm,
we just started direct messaging. Um, and I thought, I don't want to go in with humans can't change sex, you'll never be a man, blah, 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 because, obviously then you're not going to get anywhere. I wanted to find out from her, why does she think she's a gay man, but not in a judgmental sort of way,
yeah.
which is kind of, it's quite something else when you have someone who is the opposite of you saying, I am you, or I am the same as you. But I thought, okay, let's just park that and let's just have a chat. And then, over the course of a couple of days, we were messaging, and she said that she realized she was a gay man before she realized she was trans. And that came from reading novels
Mm.
about, gay love stories.
Oh, yeah.
And she said she'd always thought of herself as asexual. She never really had any drive or needs or wants or whatever sexually until she started reading those stories.
That's very female typical, isn't it?
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Women like to read stories,
Yeah, men
and
like to
men
look
are
at
more,
pictures.
yeah.
Just
Typically,
show me
typically.
your cock.
See, that's the difference. That's a point to make though, because not to say women don't watch porn. It's just that men are typically watching more porn or gifs or pictures, and women are maybe writing or reading or
Right.
whatever, and maybe not watching as graphic of things. And I was very into visual porn and the graphics of things, and
Did that prove to you again, oh, I am a man?
that's a huge part of it, is that I was hornier than my gay friends, that, I would talk more about porn and grinder and all these things than they would.
That says a lot.
Yeah,
That's quite
that's what
something.
I'm saying. Like,
Without wanting to stereotype gay men, but
yeah, I know.
I
So
mean, I was a very late developer, so I didn't have any urges or drive, or until I was in my early 20s, I think. And even then, it was a very slow awakening, shall we say.
Well, I should say that, we were young. I know had went through puberty pretty early, had a lot of trauma, and so I did sort of grow up in some ways faster.
Yeah.
And I mean, again, this was when we were like 17, 18, 19.
Right.
So,
I mean, girls tend to grow up faster and mature.
yes,
I mean, physically and
yeah,
emotionally.
but even more so maybe than the average girl was let's just say I was always the horniest one around. Um, which is it's shameful and it's alienating, and then you kind of find this idea of you can love men and be treated as a person, and you know um
And when you say it's shameful, what told you that it's shameful? Is that just like the way? Because if a guy says he's really up for it all the time, you get, especially on dating sites, dating apps, you get guys who say, I'm horny 24/7, I'm horny all the time, which for me is kind of like a red flag, because I'm like,
yeah,
well,
that's not very tactful.
surely sometimes you just want to have a cup of tea.
Yeah, I mean,
But you had this impression that, and I mean, obviously, when a man's like horned up all the time, he's seen as a stud, and spread it around, whatever. If a woman does it, she gets shamed for it.
well, that's the thing, like,
And even this conversation now, I don't really have many conversations with women
yeah,
talking about sex drive.
right. No, sex drive is it's relevant to me, if anyone's read my Twitter. um But, no, I mean, it was shameful because it I was being rejected. I was being sexually rejected by, straight men, gay men. I'm this androgynous girl, very depressed, kind of socially awkward and anxious.
Yeah.
I hadn't yet developed my
Sounds like a
funk
great
god
dating
charisma.
profile.
I
Line.
know, right? Yeah, I'm a little better now, but it was, in a traumatized state. I wasn't, the best dating material, but I was also just around kind of unavailable people. So I was being sexually rejected, and it's, excruciatingly painful, especially when they're your best friends, and there's
And you're so young.
and you're young, and you've never had, positive relationships with men. You've had abuse from men in the past. So that's kind of why I was ashamed, um, sexually, because it felt like it was tied up to my self worth, which
Right.
again is a trauma thing, an attachment thing, where you're looking for, even just physical affection and love and romance. And it was all really emotional and psychological. Um, but it's like if someone wants to have sex with you, that means they really don't love you as a person, and they don't value you. That was my mindset.
I just saw in the chat, it's Magdalene Byrne's 40th birthday.
Wow.
Would have been her 40th birthday today.
Hmm.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize that. Happy. We need more. You're empty. Yours is empty.
I know, we need to have a toast.
Right. You go and
Do you
fill
want
up. Oh,
yes.
yes. Me too.
Okay, the same
And
thing.
then I'll just have a chat
Okay.
with people
You
here.
can talk about me.
Freely. Right. Okay. To anyone watching, we're just gonna refill our drinks. If you have any questions for Laura, just pop them in the chat, and then hello, Malcolm. Then we'll go and incorporate them in the chat. I'm really happy that Laura is here, and that we're talking. Laura's turf hopping across the UK at the moment. So she's been in London, she went to Windsor, and she's trying to get to Scotland. So if there's anyone in Edinburgh or Glasgow who would be able to put her up for a couple of nights, either pop a message in the chat or message her on Twitter. So I've put her Twitter link in the description for this video. So just give her a message there. Right, let me just have a look to see what's happening in the chat. Paul is in the chat. Hello, Paul. Good evening. Oh, of course. Laura, we found you a place in Glasgow. Easy peasy. Excellent. See, this is how we help each other out.
They're filled high.
Duh. Malcolm says, duh. I know. Look, I've been cleaning and cooking, okay, and preparing for this live stream, and I'm a bit of a dizzy queen, as they say. So, and I've stayed at this place myself in Glasgow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which place?
Oh, with this man that you've already met.
Oh my God.
So all these men are putting you up.
Ooh.
We're putting up with you.
But the gay men, that's what I'm saying. The gay men
Yeah.
like me. I don't know, the straight men, I haven't had great luck with them.
Well, give it time. All right. So to everyone, here's to Magdalene, who has had such an impact and continues to have an impact, and continues to pique people, even though she's no longer with us.
Mhm.
To Magdalene.
Cheers.
Cheers. Mm. Oh, this is super sweet.
Yeah, it is.
It's just like syrup.
It is, yeah.
Mm. Right. I'm really glad that. Okay, so we were going to actually do this chat tomorrow, but now it feels more sort of symbolic.
Yeah.
That we're having it today.
Yeah.
So you have this idea of, if I'm a gay man in a gay relationship, that's about finding love and acceptance, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which is something that we all can relate to and do in ways that sometimes aren't particularly helpful.
Putting it lightly.
Putting it lightly. I wasn't talking about you then. I'm just talking about myself as well, and,
Yes.
and just in general. So then there comes a point where the transformation needs to begin.
Mm-hmm.
Did you do research into taking testosterone? Were you looking at videos of others where you thought, oh, wow, look at him with his big beard. He
Yeah.
looks amazing.
Mhm.
Like, were there any YouTubers that you were looking at particularly? Or people on
Not
Tumblr?
anyone specifically, but in general, a lot on Tumblr, you know, even on Tumblr, they would have those like mood boards or vision boards. It's just groupings of photos,
Mhm.
and you know, you'd see the aesthetics of the trans man, and like a lot of it's humor, the humor of sort of autistic humor and talking, you know, Gen Z autistic humor too.
Mhm.
So a lot of memes, a lot of in jokes about being trans. But for me, I also was identifying as agender.
Okay, genderqueer, transsexual, agender.
Yeah. So I was a agender, androphilic, transsexual.
An AAT.
Yes, an AAT.
An agender.
Agender.
What does that mean in terms of for you at the time?
It meant that I didn't associate with any gender roles or norms.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. And that needs a word.
Agender.
Yeah. Okay. Wow.
So I wanted to physiologically and sexually be a male, a gay man, but I didn't want to associate with any gender roles or norms.
Okay.
So it's very idealistic, extremely idealistic.
And then in terms of going down a medical path, you said that you started on going on testosterone at 19.
Yeah.
Did that involve many conversations did you have to see a therapist first? Or could you just ring up a clinic and say, hey, can I come in?
It was just a walk-in clinic. I actually had a female, a trans identified female professor, college, of the sociology of sexuality class that of course I took.
Yes.
As an elective. And
Susie Glucksman is just saying, Laura, we welcome you back into the sisterhood, sister.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so yeah, he recommended this clinic. And yeah, I just walked in, told them that I want testosterone. We had a 1-hour appointment. I told them all my baggage. I'm very earnest, so I just told them whatever, all of it,
Yeah.
that I was autistic, had PCOS, everything. And then they gave me a prescription that day.
That day, right.
Yeah.
I'm autistic. I've got PCOS.
I'm suicidal
I'm
and I'm
suicidal.
trans and I'm ready to take the next step.
Here, have your medication.
Yeah. So they gave me 200 milligrams of testosterone to inject into my thigh.
Yeah.
And I did that weekly.
And they showed you how to do that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I
But
mean,
still, I mean,
yeah.
that's like intramuscular,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Right in.
But I guess when you got it on the day, you were like, yes.
Yeah. I was happy.
Yeah.
The main thing I wanted was to have a beard.
I want a beard. This is as much as I can grow.
You can't grow any here.
I Not much. I mean, there's just a line here, but here's
Mm.
like this little oval shape missing. There's nothing there. There's nothing there, and there's
So
nothing.
weird.
It's.
I don't understand how it works.
I thought it had to do with the level of testosterone that you produce. So I actually had my testosterone tested the other day. Um, I just sent off like a blood sample, and then it came back, and it just said, "Yeah, you're just a typical bloke."
Typical bloke.
For my age, right? In my age range. Um, and then I thought, well, I shave this bit anyway, so maybe I can have all this transplanted into there. And then I'm like,
Mm.
well, what are you doing? Like, what for? It might look a bit better, but what does that mean?
I've heard people that were taking testosterone and put it on their face so they could try to grow facial hair, like just putting it on there. Like no one knew what they were doing.
Look, I had this weird thing. This is weird. I've never told anybody this, so why not share it with the world? I was quite a late developer. So I hit puberty a bit later than the other guys that I was in secondary school with. But when finally some hair started sprouting down there, I thought if I rub that area and then rub it all over my chest, I'll get a big hairy chest.
Oh my god. Wait, the semen?
No,
Oh,
the hair.
the hair.
Yeah.
Rub the pubic hair.
If I rub the pubic hair and then rub my chest,
Oh,
then
just okay.
yeah. Oh no, I wasn't that advanced.
Yeah,
Like,
okay.
I had no idea about that until I was like 15. And anyway, that's a whole other story, and that's not why we're
Mm.
live streaming this evening. But and I mean, again, look at my. This is as much as I can muster, but it hasn't got to do with your levels of testosterone. It's got to do with whether your follicles respond to the testosterone.
So my follicles responded to the
Oh,
testosterone
okay,
only right here.
okay.
And I've shaved like a day or so ago, so you can't really see me.
So now that because you were on the testosterone for
7
months,
months.
on that continuous high dose.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh, somebody just said, Susie says, when I first saw Menno, I thought he was a trans man. Sorry,
Yeah.
Menno. You're not the only one. Actually, there was a trans man who once thought I was one.
Mm.
And this was in real life. We met at an event, and then afterwards, she kind of started flirting with me.
Mm.
And I thought, this is before I knew any of this stuff, right? It's the first time I heard the word cis that afternoon. Anyway, so she comes up, we're chatting on the pavement, and she's kind of, being a bit flirtatious. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. And then she said, she didn't ask, did you transition? She said, when? When did you
When?
transition? And I said, I never did. And then she said, oh, but you're too pretty to have been born a boy. And then I thought, now who's stuck in stereotypes?
Mm. Yeah.
Anyways,
I've seen women say, I'm too ugly to be a girl, so that's why I'm
yeah,
non-binary,
right.
and that sort of thing.
Which is, again, it's always about the stereotypes. Whenever you go back to these things, it's because you don't suit Because I often think this whole thing is about reinforcing stereotypes, and then some people say, "But what about non-binary? Surely that goes against the stereotypes." And I'm like, "No, well, it's still rooted in the idea that if you don't adhere to a stereotype,
Yeah.
that then you can't possibly be your sex."
Right. Yeah.
Um, when you took that first shot, like how much did they give you? Did they give you like
200.
a month's supply or?
They gave me a prescription for a couple months, so I
Okay.
filled it up at my local pharmacy and got, a vial that lasted probably a few months, a
Wow.
month or so.
By the way, we're drinking pear and apple juice, never from concentrate. With now we're on the amaretto.
We were before.
No, that was the ron miel. That was the honey rum liqueur.
Oh, well, I
Now
had
we're
already finished that. I have a couple drinks ahead.
She can't taste the difference anymore.
No, I'm
It's
just
good though,
advanced. Yeah.
Um, did you look at that vial and go, "This is the answer"?
You know what I said? I have a screenshot of it, and this is very me. So on Instagram, I posted a picture of the vial, and I said, "I'm finally on hormones," with a jester emoji, like the juggler
Yes.
juggling. I've always had kind of a cosmic clown
Yeah, yeah.
energy. I have a shirts that say that, by the way.
Cosmic.
Cosmic clown.
She's
But
just a cosmic clown from another galaxy.
yes, but I am female, and so yeah. So it's like that kind of absurd. It's like, yeah, this is kind of crazy that I'm doing this, but like this is what I'm doing, and like it's unbelievable. Like it's a celebration, but also I recognize like
It's a
it's
celebration.
weird.
Did you at the time were you aware of potential side effects? Or and even if you were, did you just think, "I'm getting this"?
I don't think I really was aware of side effects. Um, I mean, I don't think I was aware of the vaginal atrophy. What I was only aware of was the positive, like the things I wanted, like the clitoral growth. I wasn't aware that the growth could be painful,
Right.
or you'd have issues with sensation or vaginal atrophy. I wanted the beard, the lower voice, the chest hair,
Yeah,
muscle growth, redistribution.
yeah.
I really wasn't aware of the side effects. I wasn't informed on that.
Wow. And so it's like you were informing them, they ignored the information, and they did not inform you.
Yeah.
When you injected it, do you just feel the pain from the injection, or do you straight away start feeling something coursing through your body and like Popeye and his spinach?
It's not
And
like heroin.
I don't know.
It
I've never done
I
that.
haven't either, but just it's not you're not gonna feel an immediate, you just feel the pain, and then, it took a few weeks or months before I started to really notice anything. But at the same time, I was abusing a lot of substances, and I was suicidal. So,
On top of taking the drugs.
yeah.
Wow.
So it was hard to know. It's like, now today, don't really use substances anymore. But if I was going to take a new medication or something, I would, really try to have it be discreet and really track what it was doing so I could know exactly what the effects were. But back then, I was just doing so many different substances and eating crazily, and just I was just really in a trauma state.
Yeah.
So I had no real idea of what was going on exactly. And I mean, I actually just looked at some photos, some nudes from before the surgery, before the mastectomy, and I'm looking at these images, and I was really, really hairy, like all over my body, and I don't even remember being that hairy, and I'm not that hairy now.
Mhm.
So it's like there was things going on that I don't even think I was aware of
Yeah.
at the time.
And there was a question from Shrub1337. During all this, was there anyone who questioned your desire to transition, or was it all positive?
Um, I think my parents sort of they didn't really understand what was going on, and we didn't really have a positive relationship. So we weren't really having like much dialogue. I think they were overall just confused. And the only real questioning that I ever got was, are you sure that you want to do this? Do you just want to have a breast reduction
Mhm.
instead of fully removing, you know? And I was like, no, I just want the whole thing gone. I want to have a flat chest completely.
Wow.
So that's really it.
I'm just noting another question, but we'll get to that in a bit. And I can't multitask, so I just forgot. It didn't register to me the last thing you just said.
Um, I said no one really questioned me.
Right. Okay. And even if they would have questioned, would you have even listened, or would you have just sort of dismissed it?
I mean, it would depend who it came from.
Mhm.
This is a big problem is that I didn't have, I'd had abuse from my family, and so if it came from them, it wouldn't have really translated.
Right.
And I didn't really have any other trusted adults. Um, I was in between therapists because I was seeing someone, and when I was having this gender issues, she told me that I needed to see that she didn't really understand it, and she wanted me to see someone else who
Okay.
understood gender issues. And I started seeing someone at a gender clinic, but then she just ended up ghosting me one day and just never talked to me again.
Okay.
That therapist, and that like hurt and was confusing. So I was shopping around for therapists at the time. And by shopping around, I mean, I was trying to find someone who it felt like actually cared and understood me,
Yeah.
because I
Wait.
really needed a lot of help. And it felt like these people were low quality therapists. It felt like they didn't really understand it. And, you know, I've always, been pretty articulate and smart. And so I would go in with all these ideas, and it just felt like these therapists were just kind of nodding along. They just weren't high
Yeah.
quality therapists
Yeah. And this is before you went on
before and
to.
during.
Okay. Right. Wow. So it sounds like you're just left to your own devices.
Yeah, pretty much. And I've now been doing, therapy over that, which is a form of emotional abandonment from my parents.
Mhm.
Um, and that has left really permanent scars for me. But when you're young, you're kind of like, well, this is great. I can just like do whatever drugs I want, like stay out all night, not go to school. I can just do whatever I want, you know. But then you grow up and kind of realize like you needed those boundaries, and you didn't have any boundaries, and you weren't really being taken care of emotionally.
Yeah. And you said you were quite. I mean, you had some gay friends,
You know,
but would you say that you had a solid support network?
I had maybe two or three friends at that time. Um, but besides that, I didn't really have anyone.
Okay. And those gay friends, when you went down this road, were they supportive of it?
They were. I mean, it was very confusing because, you know, they, I mean, I was in love with them and obsessed with them. And, you know, um, again, I don't think it was malevolent what they did, but I do think it was irresponsible or negligent what they did, which was kind of, having like an intimate relationship with me, like physically, and being like essentially being like in a relationship, but without the sex. So like it felt like they were using me emotionally and physically, but they wouldn't kind of like I wasn't really their, partner.
Yeah.
And that went on for years. So and I was suicidal, and it was really I couldn't get away. I couldn't um stop talking to them, and so they were supportive, but at the same time they were very confused as well. They didn't really understand all of what was going on. And the general consensus was pretty much um, Laura's always been depressed. She's always been messed up. She's always been suicidal, you know. So
You might as
you
well.
might as well, yeah,
Wow,
yeah,
that's quite depressing.
yeah, yeah. It felt like my family had given up on me a long time ago, um, and I had given up on
You're
myself.
giving
And
up on yourself, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
And then you have the vial
yes, the,
with,
yeah,
with the answer. So when you started noticing the effects, you said it took a few weeks.
yeah, or even a couple months.
Um, how did that? Was it like, oh yeah, this feels good? Or like, did you feel more alert, or did you have more energy? Because and you already have PCOS or PCOS, so you're already naturally producing more testosterone than the average woman.
Yeah,
So tell me how that felt.
I definitely felt an increase of aggression.
Okay.
I'm already, I don't know this at the time, but I have, I have complex PTSD at this time, that I'm irritable and I'm anxious and I'm, hyper alert and all that. Um, but yeah, I felt more aggressive. I felt more alert, more energized, more driven, and more reckless and more impulsive,
Mhm.
um, more angry, more sexual. Um, and I started to, just kind of escalate my self-destructive behaviors, because it kind of gave me that energy
Mhm.
to, because I've been severely depressed. So it's like they kind of give me energy to then act out pretty much.
Right.
I was doing petty theft,
Okay.
drinking and driving, um, you know, just escalating my substance abuse, getting into interpersonal fights, and wanting to physically fight someone, and like just all this aggression and pain and trauma,
Yeah.
was kind of,
Because as you said, you used various substances,
yeah.
so it's like the self-destructive part just gets amplified.
Hmm.
When when you started feeling that way, did you think, "Oh yeah, this is right because this is supposed to be manly"?
Yeah,
Oh
that's how
wow.
I felt. I felt like, I've always been really into 70s and 80s music and like classic rock and hard rock, and I share that music taste with my father, and my father, has been he was my abuser. So it was odd because I felt like my father in the 80s, because I'm like driving around drunk, like listening to Van Halen. Like I felt really cool. I felt really reckless. And I'm like, this is what it feels like to be masculine. And like my dad was really, aggressive, and especially when he was younger, and, full of testosterone and rage and everything, as he would describe. And it just is odd. Like I'm like, I feel, very masculine
Yeah.
because of the aggression.
And then you were on this for 7 months,
Yeah.
and how did your dad respond to you being on testosterone?
Um, well, I was pretty estranged from him.
Right. He
Um,
wasn't really a part of your life?
well, I lived with him,
Okay.
but this is a very much situation of like, I have a room in the basement. I'm asleep all day, up all night. I'm
Right.
avoiding my family,
Yeah.
like, that sort of thing. Um, so I didn't really talk to him very much. Um,
And I guess at the time you were 19, so you could do
yeah. And I was
what
going to
you wanted.
college. So like I guess I did, leave the house and things. And I had a job, part-time job, but I actually took a semester off from college. So this is my mental state at the time. I got testosterone when I was 19, and then when I turned 20, about, a month or so around that time, I put myself inpatient to the psychiatric ward
Wow.
for suicide ideation for the second or third time. And then as I came out about a week later, I felt very driven um, to get surgery and to get and I booked that appointment with the
Yeah.
surgeon, and it coincided that I was in the hospital right as this new semester of school was going to start, and so I decided to take a semester off because I was in a bad place. Um, but instead of really, you know, healing or resting, I was on the testosterone. So that's when I just started to have a lot of downtime as well to, um, abuse substances
Yeah.
and things.
So even when you're in, you were in that place for like a week,
You know,
did nobody there say, did they know about you taking testosterone and why? And
um, well, I don't think you can't really bring anything into the hospital, so um, I couldn't bring the testosterone in the hospital, but they knew I was trans. No one said anything.
okay, so you come in because you want to kill yourself,
You know,
and then I mean,
and
I'd like to think that then they have a good conversation where they try to unpick why is this
well, not really. I mean, when you go inpatient, it's really just trying to stabilize you
right?
so that they
Okay,
can check you back out.
is that because there's no time or there's too
Yeah,
many?
it's too there's too many people. Insurance is paying for it most of the time. Insurance is really strict about
God,
what
it's
they'll
almost like
pay
TGI
for.
Fridays. You come in, you get a table, you get like an hour to have your food, and then you have to leave.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, they try to kick you out as soon as possible. So it's really just a matter of like stabilizing you, which is kind of just, I mean, for some people, they like put them on meds or they
Yeah,
find an outpatient service. Um, they did put me in an outpatient service, um, and for that only lasts a couple weeks. It's sort of just an intensive,
yeah,
like, get your shit together. Like, here's some tools, and but the problem is, like, if you don't have a regular therapist and also you're living in
yeah,
the same environment, nothing's really going to change from a week.
right. And I guess for therapy to have an effect, it needs to be consistent. And it's not like you just have a few weeks of therapy and you've sorted your issues out.
Yeah, it takes months or years.
Yeah.
You know.
So you come out and you're like, right, that's it. Those breasts have to go.
Yeah, I mean, I've been ruminating on it for years, but the testosterone gave me you know, also being in the hospital, it's like it's kind of a sick version of like, oh, I need to change, I need to better my life. But for me, it was like, okay, this is how I change and better my life is to
Yeah.
have this procedure.
And then is it just a matter of, again, phoning up, making an appointment? They don't make you see someone first, or they did they want a statement, like a reference from a psychologist type person, therapist type person?
The surgeon wanted 2 letters of recommendation from just healthcare professionals. So um, I got 1 letter from my general doctor, so the person I see like once a year for a checkup. So again, this person's not qualified at all to write this letter,
Yeah.
but they took that letter and then they took a letter from my psychiatrist who diagnosed me with gender dysphoria, and she was completely incompetent because she said I wasn't suicidal and that I was stable enough to make the decision to have surgery to treat this gender dysphoria. Clearly, obviously, I was not. Um, and so those were the 2 letters.
Right.
And then,
And then the surgery.
yeah, and then, uh, I never felt that the appointments with the surgeon's office were very thorough. He always felt rushed. And, again, at the time, you're very naive and you're just like, oh, I'm so glad that someone's like providing me, affirming care. Like, I'm so grateful, I don't know anything. Meanwhile, I can look back now and be like, that person was just wanted the money. Like they're just a cosmetic surgeon that's making their
Right.
entire living now off of like top surgery
Yeah,
on
yeah.
girls as young as 16. Yeah,
I know in the States they do it at 12, even at Kaiser Permanente
yeah,
Hospital,
yeah.
12-year-olds. There's a message in the chat from Vanessa V. Vanessa Voki. Vanessa, hi, nice to see you. Vanessa used to make videos on YouTube and kind of seems to have disappeared, but now she's here. Hi, Vanessa, nice to see you. And she says, I'm Vanessa Voki, by the way. Not sure if people know me. Yes, we do. But I just wanted to say I've had a conversation with Menno. We did. We had a long chat, and he is a lovely person and deserves this platform for all the work he's done for women and the gays. Well, thank you very much, Vanessa. It's been a while since we last messaged each other or spoke, but obviously there's plenty to talk about, so we're doing it. The day of the surgery.
Yeah.
At the time, I guess you thought this is a good thing. Hurrah! Finally.
Um,
But you said earlier that your surgeon told you to come off testosterone.
yeah, that's important.
Why was that?
I still don't really know. But he told me maybe like a couple months before the surgery that I needed to go off of testosterone just in case. And I still don't really know why.
Right.
And also stop smoking weed, which I was very unhappy about. But I did, although I did shrooms like a week before. I don't know. I was really mentally ill.
Yeah.
But going cold turkey off of a high dose of testosterone, I really got no guidance at all from the surgeon or the clinic or, you know, um, so I just went cold turkey off of a high dose of testosterone, and I kind of had a mental break that resulted in damage to my friendships, and then
Right.
I ended up um, losing my friends because of my toxic behavior. Um, and then I was suicidal because I just lost my friends, like these people that I was in love with,
Yeah.
So I was pretty devastated. And so I was suicidal. And then the day of the surgery, the surgeon asked me how I was, and I said I was feeling suicidal. And he said, is it related to the surgery? And I said, no, it's related to other things. And he was like, do you want to do it? I was like, yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah. So I mean, I was not in,
Hi, I'm suicidal. Don't you think it's related to this? No. All right then.
yeah. And the thing is, yeah, I wasn't in a state of mind to be able to make that decision. I mean, clearly this entire time I wasn't, but especially then I wasn't. Um, and then I had the surgery. It went how it was expected to go. Um, and
Somebody asked a question in the chat earlier. It's a bit of a black and white question.
okay.
Um, do you remember the feeling waking up from the mastectomy? Were you doubtful or did you feel amazing?
I felt pretty ambivalent. So not black and white. Um, I felt ambivalent because I was happy that this had been done and I was going to live my new life, but I was sad because I just lost my friends,
Yeah.
and that was far more important to me. Um, so after the surgery, I was I was in a state of grief because I had damaged my relationships, and my friends had weren't talking to me anymore, and so I was like, okay, I need to take a break from the testosterone because clearly the testosterone, I was so excited I didn't want to go off of it.
Mhm.
But then I was like, I can't go back on it until I get more mentally stable because it was
Right.
affecting me so much.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and then when I did get mentally stable, I detransitioned. So I never ended up going back on the testosterone, thankfully.
Wow.
But that's how severe it was that I was like, even me who just really desperately wants to get this thing going, didn't
Yeah.
go back on.
Yeah. So that's in a way is maybe a light bulb moment isn't the right way to put it, but that you had a strong sense of this is not right.
It's just not safe, you know.
Right.
Um, and there's already been damage from it to me and other people. So I was kind of afraid of it to go back on. I was afraid of myself and felt really ashamed. And I kind of retreated. And this is what I would call the darkest time of my life because I had no friends. I was, in this delusion and I was very aimless in life. I didn't care about anything. I
Mm.
didn't care about college. I didn't care about anything. And I was just hooking up with men, like middle-aged drug addicts, and doing drugs with them, hard drugs. And I was like 21, 22. And then, I became obese. Like I was really bad. And then it came to the point when I was like, um, I think there might be something else wrong with me besides, these diagnoses I already have. I think maybe borderline personality disorder. And then I got a full psychological evaluation and they diagnosed me with PTSD. And it started really all making sense. And then, this is all within 3 or 4 months or 6 months or so that I'm getting this diagnosis, realizing, oh, I have had trauma. Like, PTSD, you don't think
Mhm.
about, um, really didn't think about it at all, like you only think about it in terms of veterans or maybe people who have experienced rape,
Mhm.
you don't think about it for, you know, psychological abuse, but
Yeah. Plus, you may think, well, surely what I've experienced isn't good enough to
yeah,
qualify as
right.
some, because again, which again ties in with low self-esteem and not believing that you have any value.
Yeah, that's how I felt. Um, it was just a surprise, but it made complete sense. And so I, at this around this in the same 6 months, I just naturally, I guess, on Tumblr started getting gender critical posts on my feed, and I, agreed with, a lot of what was being said, and I found some detransitioner posts,
Mhm.
and this was before detransition became like well known or
Yeah.
anything. So it's just like anonymous people, and then I started to relate to it from the trauma, and then a detransitioner invited me to a private Facebook group. Maybe
Okay.
had like 30 or 40 people in it, just all detransition women or people who were questioning.
Yeah.
And it was just all women who had trauma.
And this is about 4 or 5 years ago?
Yeah, that was in 2018 or
Okay.
2019. Yeah, 2019. Um, and then I was invited to a detransition women's meetup in person in Portland.
Wow, Portland.
Yeah, outside of Portland.
Okay.
Um, and it was like maybe 25 women. Everyone was a lesbian except me. I was the only straight person, but a lot of people were autistic and we all had trauma. And it was the first time I really felt, um, in a long time at least, that I felt connected to other people.
Right.
Because we were all women and like we could just be sure, like we were on women's land, which means only females are allowed. So it was like taking our shirts off, like being naked and stuff. And we all have mastectomy scars and we're all have hairy legs and like we're all, you know, um, just kind of natural females. And so that was really healing to me to have like a sisterhood.
Yeah.
And then I helped to start detransvoices.org, but I kind of fell off on it because I was needing to finish college because I'd been dragging my feet on it because I didn't know what I wanted to do
Yeah.
as a major. Um, and then I started to um, do some therapy, but I didn't really like the therapist was she was like what 29,
Oh, wow.
and I'm just like, you know, I always tell people like don't see a therapist unless they're at least over like 45.
Okay.
Yeah, you don't want a younger one. But yeah, the person wasn't really helpful, but it kind of I started to just do things on my own, like mindfulness and meditation and, DBT stuff,
What is DBT?
dialectical behavioral therapy.
Okay.
It was invented to treat borderline personality disorder. Um, so some of those skills were helpful to me. And then um, I started to have kind of somewhat coming back to myself, like, accepting my female body
Yeah.
and accepting being autistic. And um, I started to like lose weight and just like these basic, really basic healing things,
Yeah.
the fundamental things. And then I accepted myself as an artist, which sounds really absurd, but I was so insecure
Yeah.
that I felt like it was too risky or scary. I wasn't good enough to major in art or writing or something creative because I felt like it was, um, too intimidating. I couldn't make it. Like, that's not stable. But I was finally just like, I have to accept that I am a creative person and I don't, I don't have any passion for any like normal job. So I like changed my major to arts after being undecided for 5 years.
Mhm.
And then that was pretty much the best decision that I ever made, because I really started to actually feel like care about something when I was doing art. And then I got off all my medications, um, and I was just like, I'm gonna live. I just want to see my baseline. Like, what am I really like?
Mhm.
And then I got off all medications, and then I did a lot of LSD, because the SSRIs, the antidepressants, inhibit the psychedelic effects. And so I did an LSD trip for the first time. I actually got a proper experience, and it was a spiritual awakening for me. And that was when I was 23.
Yeah.
So I had a spiritual awakening. I was feeling really abundant and creative, making music, like losing weight, all these things. And then COVID happened, and then that was kind of surreal, but I was really like in a good groove. And then I unfortunately, still hadn't really healed my trauma. It was like, okay, I was doing some mindfulness and
Yeah.
LSD and stuff, which was good, but didn't get to the root of it. And then, long story short, I ended up falling in love with a sociopath who spiritually manipulated me into an affair. And that destroyed me spiritually. He also like there's trauma that happened on LSD, unfortunately. Um,
It's like there's so many things that seem to have piled up over the
yeah,
years
it's just a pile of
that
shit,
didn't get
man.
dealt with. Then you
Yeah,
took a certain route because you thought this is the way, which was a maladaptive
yeah,
coping mechanism.
yeah,
But then some light starts to come in.
yeah.
The focus becomes less on identity.
More
It-
on creativity
yeah,
and
I mean,
yeah,
who you are as a person in terms of what your qualities are and
yeah,
what your dreams are, rather than I need to have this label and I need to now
yeah.
mold myself physically through surgery and hormones to fit with
Hmm.
XYZ. When you then have this, it's like coming home to yourself
Hmm.
in a way, right?
Yeah. I mean,
But
especially the spiritual stuff, the excess. I mean, you're doing LSD and I did it in a pool, like, and I mean, just looking at my, like at this time, I was still going around shirtless at the beach and stuff. Like I was androgynous
Mhm.
looking enough at the time. It's like you're looking at your body and you're just feeling love for yourself and feeling actually connected to, the universe and not feeling alienated. And that first time I did LSD properly, so much aggression just melted away. And I didn't feel angry.
Right.
And I'm just like, wow, I really don't feel any anger, even though all this has happened. I don't feel any anger feel just forgiveness of myself and others. Um, so like the LSD was really healing to me. Um, but unfortunately,
Is that legal? That drugs? LSD?
no.
That's acid, right?
Yeah.
See, I don't know much about drugs.
Yeah, that's not legal.
Okay. We
But
don't
it
don't
happened.
do this at home.
Yeah, don't yeah, it's best to do it shamanic led. But
But the question I had was, as you, you go for the art, you have the what you call the spiritual awakening.
yeah.
With that, did you also get a realization of, oh wow, I've really gone down a road that wasn't right for me? Was that sort of like a gradual thing,
It
or
was
was that
gradual.
it wasn't like a oh my god?
Yeah, I didn't really realize, I mean, again, I didn't really internalize any of this deeply. I mean, again, I was still dealing with the trauma of losing my friends, and like that was my main focus of pain for a few years. And then the LSD helped me sort of get over that,
Mhm.
but I still hadn't dealt with any of the other stuff. So I only really started to deeply address it when I started being involved with this sociopath, and all this shit was triggered, and I was like, you know what? The same sort of pattern is happening again, like this obsession and like this trauma bond, and like it's scary and everything. I'm like, maybe I need to find a therapist who can really help me, and I really need to. I'm really open now. Like the LSD really helped me be open and trusting of humanity and stuff. So I was like, I found um I was like, I want a therapist who's worked with detransitioners, just
Right.
someone who really will understand me. And luckily, I was able to find Stella O'Malley before she started Gen Spect. Um, and she, I owe her a lot. She helped me to work through, at least partly work through the sociopath and everything. I saw her for a year and a half
Mhm.
when I was 24, and also around 24. Oh, I should say the sociopath was my rock bottom. Again, it wasn't the worst time of my life, but it was my rock bottom because I was awakened enough at that point
Mhm.
and had the support at that point when I did hit that to be able to actually fully wake up. And then I got into Jordan Peterson shortly after that, who is greatly needed at the time. So like Jordan, therapy, um, philosophy, and just also turning 24, like my brain, I started to feel it like developing. Like I
Mhm.
felt like I was maturing. And then since then, I've pretty much been on a positive healing path. Um, haven't had any traumas, trauma free, new trauma free for two
Yeah, yeah,
years,
yeah.
new trauma free for 2 years. And
If only traumas were like parking s spaces where one trauma has to go out before another trauma can go in,
that
but
would be really
it
nice.
doesn't quite work like that, does it?
Yeah.
Oh, Chris B, thank you so much for your £5. And Chris says,
He says, "Hi, Laura, Menno. Interesting convo."
I mean, we've been talking for a while. It's an
Yeah,
hour 45. Um, I guess you said it was a gradual thing.
yeah. Just
Then,
settling into yourself, into reality.
and did this whole idea of I'm male, or rather, I desperately want to be male, did that then sort of melt away?
Yeah. As I started to, you know, accept being a woman and relate to other females and appreciate femaleness, um, one big thing for me was when I started to really realize, like, I've had all these sexual fantasies and romantic fantasies and of my male body, but all of the pleasure and all this has been done with a female body. Like all I've been, obsessing over and thinking the grass is greener on the other side, um, with the male genitalia, and yet I've been
Mhm.
utilizing this female genitalia, and it's been working out really well. Like, you know, So I'm like, that was a
So
huge moment.
yeah.
I'm just like, it was so absurd. I'm just like, yeah, I actually, all the joy I've ever felt has been in a female body. That's all I know.
Yeah,
And
and you'd probably lose a lot if you go down
yeah, yeah.
the surgery route
So
down
yeah.
there,
Hmm.
which is this is in a way why when they put these kids on the so-called puberty blockers and then the cross-sex hormones, then you take away any ability to experience sexual pleasure as an adult.
Yeah.
I mean, we go hopefully we can all remember the last time we had a good orgasm. Hopefully it was recent, but like why would you not let somebody have the ability to experience that? I mean, with yourself, just with yourself, and because what's more helping to kick you into your own body
Yeah.
than a powerful orgasm?
Right. And then when, you don't allow that, they don't know what they're missing.
And also in terms of being with someone else in an intimate situation,
Yeah.
and the way that you can bond with someone through that.
Hmm.
It is such a powerful, beautiful, crazy thing that we just develop naturally.
Yeah. It is. It's a curse and a blessing.
Right, yes.
Sexuality.
Yeah.
Yeah. But still, it is a enormous part of being alive as a human being, and to deprive someone of that chance to develop that is evil.
Yes, I believe that. I absolutely believe that. And now, well, then there came a point where you must have gone, okay, this part of my life is over.
Yeah, I mean, um, the sociopath really, it like the traumas don't fully go away, but like whatever is the dominating trauma at the time really takes your focus. So the sociopath became my, obsession. Um, and then I was able to start working through all the childhood trauma and all of it and the gender stuff. And then I started connecting with other people like on Twitter. Because I hadn't been on Twitter really much. I was on Tumblr, and then I
Mm.
became very isolated. And then I started to go on Twitter, where all this was happening, this discourse and this movement. Um, and so I'm trying to think, like probably when I was about 24 and a half, I started to feel comfortable being feminine, like expressing femininity,
Mhm.
not just androgyny. I grew out my hair, and I felt comfortable wearing women's clothes and showing skin. Not that that's the only thing to being a female, but just I've been very uncomfortable with showing skin or like having any like natural sort of curves or anything being shown. And I
Yeah.
started to mourn the fact that I didn't have a normal female body to be able to sexually signal, let's say. I started like going out to bars and stuff for a brief time.
Mhm.
I did not enjoy it, but going out and trying to, like look good and stuff, and it was very painful to just fully accept myself as a straight female and just
Mhm.
be like a 24-year-old and just want to sexually signal, in the mating market. And I couldn't really do that as much because I didn't have the body, that I used to have.
Yeah.
Um, so probably about 24,
So it's like, oh, an awakening then leads to a new
many awakenings.
leads to, but also it leads then to. I mean, the more aware you are, it also means you're more aware of
Yeah,
pain.
yes, yes. And honestly, it's just the more embodied I get, the more I heal, the more I feel comfortable. Again, we were saying earlier, the more love I feel, the more the pain is kind of dislodged and kind of comes out. And I still mourn my body, especially now that my biological drive to have children is kicked in, and like the bonding with children and the attachment and the breast and just everything sexually, sensually. it just, I still have a lot of grief about it. Um, Even though I've been talking about it and processing it for years, I haven't really fully internalized just because the long term planning hadn't even kicked in until I was 24,
Mm,
25.
mhm.
So only in the past 2 years have I really understood how evil it all was and how severe it was, and is.
Yeah. And again, you're 26.
Yeah, I'm 26.
So on the one hand, it sounds like an awful lot has been crammed into those 26 years,
Yes,
which also
yes.
means an awful lot to process.
Yeah,
And yet 26 is, to me, it's so young.
that's what they
Looking
say.
back, right?
Yeah.
Is that annoying when people say
I'm just like, let me be miserable and hopeless. And you guys are all saying I'm so young and I have time.
that?
Like,
Cheer up.
yeah, yeah,
You know nothing.
exactly. That's what they say. Yeah.
Wow.
Hmm.
And then obviously here we are today, and you've provided testimony outside the Texas Capitol.
Hmm.
You've been part of the Detrans panel at GenSpect.
Yeah.
You were also one of the founders of Detrans Voices
Hmm.
with Carol,
Yeah.
who was one of the first detransitioners I came across when I started going down the rabbit hole.
Hmm.
How I mean, it's one thing having this individual awakening and the healing and the grieving and the mourning. It's another then to want to talk about it.
Yeah.
How did that come up? I mean, obviously I'm running this channel and I'm talking about what I believe
Yeah.
because I just saw too much and I thought there's no way I can just look away. I have to say something, which I guess was a bit of a gradual thing as well. But when it kicked in, it really kicked in.
Yeah. You just become, there's a, there's just, you start to gradually be like, oh, okay, this is not good. And then eventually you're just horrified and you're like, oh, so we're witnessing like unspeakable evil on a mass scale, and it's an illusion everyone's falling for.
Mhm.
Um, and I know the truth, and everyone else seems to be asleep. Um, so I have a responsibility to say something.
Yeah.
That's how I feel about a lot of things. I mean, that's why I talk a lot about just many mental health issues, just trauma awareness,
Yeah, yeah.
familial abuse, PCOS, all of these things. Um,
Well, all
because
these
once you
things,
awaken on one thing, you just start to have a
yeah,
domino effect of everything else.
and all these things feed into what molds you as a person. And what, why? I mean, earlier you were saying if it wasn't for those initial traumas, you may not never have wanted to go down that medical route.
Yeah. I mean, this is the thing that the type of girl or young woman who's drawn to this identity tends to be a certain type of person that I've fleshed out as the archetypal FTM, the quirky, sensitive, artistic, weird girl. And I'm going to write a memoir about this soon.
Hmm.
Um, but, they tend to be cerebral, they tend to be truth seekers and idealistic and
Right.
very cerebral and abstract. They're very smart, even gifted. Um, that's why you see, the people who are public or who write about it anonymously, they're all very intelligent and articulate
Hmm.
and deep, sensitive people. So these are the people getting sucked into this. And so the people that get spat out and kind of are able to talk about it, that's why they're all like this, because they're preying upon these vulnerable cerebral types who are
Right.
sensitive. So I mean, that's why one thing I learned from my therapist was, in the family systems, there's different roles that we can play. And for a very long time, I played the role of the
Okay.
scapegoat child. It's kind of blamed because they're usually different or they tend to be outspoken.
Okay.
And
Do you have brothers and sisters?
yeah,
Okay.
but let me get to this.
Yeah.
So the scapegoat also tends to be the truth teller archetype.
Right.
They're the truth teller. So they are
Which
pointing
takes
out.
us back to the core jester or the cosmic clown.
They're pointing out the absurdity, and then they get blamed because
Right.
the other people in the family don't want to acknowledge that. But then, obviously, taking that archetype and now being public, I not to sound grandiose, but I do view myself strongly as a truth teller and a truth seeker and a knowledge seeker, and again, the cosmic clown, sort of that like existential absurdist philosophy. Like, God, this is insane. I'm gonna at least talk about it.
Yeah. And you started off doing, you said, like, some small interviews.
Yeah,
So
smaller.
you sort of just gently
Yeah, and then more
dipped
people
your
know
toes in the
you.
water.
Yeah, and I write a Substack, Funky
Mhm.
Psyche.
Funky Psyche.
Yeah, Funky Psyche.
I'll put that link in the description
Mhm.
after
Thank you.
this chat. So Funky Psyche
Yeah,
dot
that's
substack
Substack. Yeah.
dot com. Okay.
Mhm.
Funky Psyche. Wow.
Yeah.
And then um Jen Speck.
Yeah, I've been very involved with Gen Spec this whole time because I was seeing Stella, who founded Gen Spec, while I was still seeing her.
Mhm.
And so I've been very close with Gen Spec and with other organizations like Our Duty in
Yeah.
America. And I'm getting involved a lot more now. Um, kind of been healed enough to the point where I feel confident enough to, and I've graduated college, and I, have my art business and my Etsy store and all these sort
Yeah.
of, like, I'm using my gifts in all these ways, and now I feel confident to use my gift of suffering.
The gift of something.
The gift of suffering.
Well, maybe there's another word,
Well, I have to say though, I was very flattered as someone.
like the gift of turning suffering into.
Well, the gift of, as they say, being articulate. That's what I get called, articulate, all the time.
Mhm.
Um, but someone said on Twitter the other day, we all suffer, Laura, but you do it beautifully.
Ah,
I was like, that is such a good compliment as an artist, isn't it? You do it beautifully.
to me, there's something self-indulgent about that.
But they said it.
That yeah, because it's like when you get wrapped up in your emotions and you're hurting,
Yeah.
and part of you is like, I don't want to hurt, but at the same time, I was like, but I look so good doing it.
Yeah. No, I romanticize everything.
Oh wow!
I
Because
romanticize my
that in a way,
pain.
then it can be a
It could be a
trap.
little much, yeah. It is a trap, but I do it beautifully. And then I, you know, have a good sense of humor about it too.
That's so important.
Yeah, God, if I didn't, I've gotten critiques
Hmm.
that I don't seem hurt enough because I'm like joking and things. I'm just like, if I didn't joke about, I mean, I cry every day. I was crying earlier today and yesterday.
Hmm.
If I wasn't joking and intellectualizing, I'd be crying all the time, you know. So I need to have variety.
Right. It's almost like that's part of a coping mechanism.
Yeah, it's a positive one.
There was a question earlier. Somebody called JJ asked, "Do you get pushback from people who are not trans-identified, or is it mainly the what I call the woo-woo brigade?"
Yeah, I mean, a pushback. I mean, it's hard to tell exactly who these people are, online making these comments if they're trans identified or not.
Mm.
I do get a lot of comments basically just concerned people in the public that who will say basically like, you need to take personal responsibility. This is your own fault. You only have yourself to blame.
That
Suck it
solves it
up,
all, doesn't
snowflake.
it?
Yeah, I like to say so from the left, politically in
Mm.
America, the left, people will say like you're a Nazi, you're a bigot, you were never trans, you're a transphobe, you are homophobic, you are in bed with the right, and
But
you
this,
hate trans people, and that's from
yeah,
them the criticism I get.
it's interesting because when they use the "you were never trans to begin with," well,
Yeah.
that shows why there's good therapy needed. Because
Yeah.
why do people misidentify that way if they're not really?
Right. I mean, again, that's their argument that
Right.
there is a true trans.
Yeah.
I don't believe there is.
I
I think
don't.
true trans is circular thinking.
Mhm.
True trans is true trans. You only have a successful transition if you're truly trans. And what will make a successful transition if you're truly trans? You know, so it doesn't. It's meaningless.
Mhm.
But then from the right, I get things like that serves you right, you snowflake. Like that's what you get from being a libtard, and you should have your parents should have disciplined you more, and like just these two extremes. um so victim blaming from both sides and gaslighting from both sides, and then gaslighting from the trans activists, whether they're trans identified or
Mhm.
not,
Mhm.
the trans activists. But also, even if they're not talking directly to me, um the way they talk about detransitioners, and they put us into this monolith of just liars and grifters is the new popular thing. Yeah. And I mean, it's like I have an Etsy store and I have detrans awareness stuff in there.
Yeah.
But I always lean into it. I'm like, you want to call me a grifter? I mean, I'm allowed to participate in commerce.
Look,
I'm allowed
yeah,
to
but they'll
participate.
twist it any way they want to.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you're, say, ContraPoints, who has I don't know how many, what thousands of Patreon subscribers and
Yeah.
makes thousands of dollars a month, if not more, that's not grifting because whatever he says is true. But it's like you can't win, right?
No, you
Because
can't
J.K.
win.
Rowling obviously has got plenty of money, so they say that she's got all this privilege. At the same time, they'll make fun of someone. Like there's a gay man on Twitter who's very outspoken about this, and he said something about being poor, and then they laugh at him for being poor. So they'll try to ridicule you in any way possible.
Yeah.
Does it get to you, or can you sort of, is it like water off a duck's back? If you've been exposed to it for a while and you just kind of learn to ignore it, or is there a part that it does affect you, especially if you've got a day where you're feeling, or a period where you're feeling very very down?
It definitely gets to me. I mean, again, there's the part of me that's more mature and healthy and calm and regulated emotionally, where I'm like, this is just lies, and I just block the person or ignore it. But there is still the really hurt um, parts of me that were verbally abused and have complex PTSD from verbal abuse and manipulation, and gaslighting. And I have imposter syndrome. So if I'm reading something when I'm in a flashback, um, it does that. It's just negative energy that just
Mm,
adds on top of
mm,
that. Um, and the same with the loving comments as well. Like if I'm in a good state, I can actually really appreciate and feel the compliments. But a lot of the times when I'm in a flashback or whatever, I don't internalize the positive, encouraging comments either.
okay.
So yeah,
What would be a good way to bank the positive stuff so you can withdraw it whenever you need?
I mean, I really should be like screenshotting or saving the positive comments and messages, and like maybe making a folder
Yeah.
so that I can read them. Um, I do gratitude journaling. I haven't been in the past month. I've been traveling so much, but that helps. And
Hmm.
I'll do 5 things that I'm grateful for in general of the day, and
Yeah.
5 things I'm grateful to myself for doing that day. And I really try to sit with each one. I greatly need to do that. I
Okay.
need some gratitude, yeah, right now.
Well, let's wrap up in a couple of minutes time,
Okay.
and then we're both really hungry. We've eaten, but it's a while ago. We've been snacking away on things, but we've got some Moroccan chicken in the fridge, so we're gonna have that. Oh God, it's just gone after midnight. Um, Let me just see if there's, because we could keep talking for hours.
Yeah.
Blah 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 blah. There's a word that you used a couple of times, abundant.
Yes.
I like that. What does what does that mean for you?
Fruitful, generative, um, not wanting, like
Oh,
satisfied
right,
and
yeah.
more is coming, gratitude versus scarcity is the opposite of abundance. Scarcity being there's not enough, you're starving, you're desperate, you're clinging for something. So I often get into the duality of these things. And I'm like, again, like a week ago, I'm like completely feeling abundant. A day or so ago, I'm
Yeah.
completely feeling scarce. I'll never be loved. I'll never have sex. I'll never have anything. I'll never be healthy. Just these, extremes.
Do you think that's just part of life for you, and it's kind of about
Yeah.
learning to accept that, or do you think that there's a way out of that?
I think,
Because a lot of people talk about closure, and I always think that's such a simplistic concept. It's a nice idea, but
mhm,
certain things maybe you don't heal from them.
I think that the extremes I'm trying to aim for neutrality. I'm not very good at it still, but
Mhm.
I'm trying to understand. I've gotten a lot better at understanding that everything's cyclical and being like completely aware, like I'm in like a phoenix cycle. I
Yeah,
liked a lot the life, death, and rebirth phase. Right now,
yeah.
I'm in the death phase, or actually, I'm in the rebirth phase right now.
Okay.
But I was in the death phase for a couple days. I'll be in the life phase again, and then back to the death. So it's like I'm aware of that at the same time. Um, it's just really painful. Um, I still have a lot of trauma in my body and a lot of grief and loss. So I'm just really in a lot of pain. Like my heart really hurts a lot. Um, that's going to be something for a long time, I'm sure. I have a lot of loneliness. Um, you know, so um, I wish it wasn't part of my path.
Of the beautiful suffering.
Yeah, it's just like, okay, enough of this. Like, I just want to experience
What's the opposite of
calm.
suffering? Calm, the beautiful calm,
Yeah, the
the
blissful.
blissful calm.
Yeah, I'd
That's
like
nice.
that. Yeah. Um,
Have there This may sound really cheesy, but looking at some of my, the things when I've been at a low point, and then looking at what's helped to pull me out. Sometimes there's like something that somebody says to you, or maybe it's a song that you hear with a particular lyric, or a quote that you see that suddenly shifts something in your mind. Is there one for you that you sort of go back to, or that stands out where you're like, yeah, that one?
a quote. Mm.
No pressure. We're only live.
Mhm. I
Sorry.
mean,
You don't have to have to come up with one.
there
Like
really
for the sake of it.
there's nothing that's.
Comes to mind.
Honestly, what helps me greatly is instrumental funk and jazz music, like without lyrics.
Mhm,
Sometimes really helps. Really, just getting into the groove, the
mhm.
funk. The groove to me is like consciousness, the flow of life. That's why Funk God's slogan is "Don't forget to boogie," because boogieing is when you're fully embracing the spirit of life, vitality. Um, so really, music helps greatly. Just kind of getting into a groove, a flow state,
Yeah,
um, and like creating something helps. Really, what helps me the most is when I'm proud of something. When I'm like, oh, you know what? Like when the sociopath had discarded me, I had just released my first album and
wow.
Funk God, and I'm driving around crying in my car, being like despairing. But then I put on this album and I'm like, I just like made this song. Like most people don't make a whole album.
Yeah.
And
Adele did pretty well, turning her
yeah,
heartache into
yeah,
a healthy bank balance.
Yes, yeah, I should try to take that route.
Yeah.
Just become a great singer instead of just making, like, an instrumental song about skeletons or whatever with a xylophone in it.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
yes,
That sounds funky.
it is. So it's like, I'm just like, "Okay, you know what? Like, I am capable of being more than the pain."
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah. I think that's a good note to end on. Being more than the pain.
yes.
We are more than the bad things that happen to us. And I think that's a quote from Affirmation Generation. Was it Noel or Joel? There was a guy in there.
Joel?
Joel. I think he said that.
Mhm,
There's more. We are more than the bad things that have happened to us.
mhm.
I think that's. I wrote it down. I paused
Mm,
the film. If anybody hasn't seen Affirmation Generation, I can really recommend it. It's had some good reviews actually,
yeah.
and it's going to be shown at different festivals,
Mhm, mhm.
which is great. Because the more that this gets out, the better.
Yeah, it's the number 1 film on this topic. It's completely thorough about the science, the statistics, the personal testimonials,
Yeah.
and I have a song in it.
What was that?
That was, during the social media montage where they're showing all those
Ah,
videos. It's like electronic kinda.
that's your music.
Yeah,
So, writer,
artist,
artist,
musician,
musician.
graphic designer.
Because, like in the title of this chat, I've put detransitioner.
Yeah.
I've got something shiny on me.
Sweat?
Is it? Is it just?
I think it's sweat, eh? I don't know. A little funk.
Is it a reflection of something? Who knows? Sorry, just had to make it all about me. Um, I put the word detransitioner in the title, obviously, because that's what people look for. That's what they
Yeah,
want to hear about. But as I said earlier in on this chat, obviously there's so much more. You're
yeah.
not. It's not like you can just collapse a whole person into one word,
Mhm.
detransitioner. And I'm sure you don't want your life to be about that.
No, it's only one part of me. Um, so I made him put in Funk God in my name, Laura Funk God Becker. Because
So
that
Elizabeth says, "Thank you, Menno," and Laura the legend.
Laura the legend.
Laura the legend.
Yeah, some infamous.
Okay, there is one. Have you ever heard of Kate Bush?
Yeah, I haven't
Oh,
really listened much.
okay.
I'm
Now,
misogynistic. I only like male singers and voices.
okay. Well, while you're here, I'll give you a bit more of
Okay,
a Kate Bush education.
okay.
She's I think, an incredible artist who does her own thing. And sometimes I listen to her music and I don't really understand what's going on because the backing vocals are just so out of this world, or the way she uses her voice, or the subjects of her songs.
Mhm.
But it's all original.
Yeah,
And there's one song that she has. It can always be a bit cringe when you tell someone else about a song that means a lot to you,
yeah.
but
I get it though.
I'm gonna risk it. She has a song called "Moments of Pleasure,"
Okay.
which she's just recounting things that mean something to her. So to the listener, it might not mean much, right? So
Yeah.
she sings about the case of George the Wipe. Oh, I can't stop laughing. And as a listener, you're like, I don't understand. But she's just looking at all these, like, diving into the sea for a swim. It's just moments that she has. And then the chorus goes, just being alive, it can really hurt. Just being alive, it can really hurt. These moments given are a gift from time. Just let us try to give these moments back to those we love, to those who will survive.
Mhm.
I'll play it to you.
Yeah.
But to me, that's such a beautiful song. Just let us try to give these moments back to those we love, to those who will survive. And I think that's why we both do what we do.
Yeah.
It's about bringing that knowledge or that wisdom, and particularly about how you can lose yourself in life,
To the pain.
but then you can find yourself again.
Yeah.
On that note, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in. This is a long one. We've been talking for 2 hours and 15 minutes.
That's typical for me.
And we've been talking all afternoon anyway.
Yes.
So we're going to wrap up. We're going to love you and leave you. Thank you so much for joining us. And Dusty, you said that you were we distracted you from writing a post, but now you're going to go back to it. So good luck with that.
Malcolm, I
Mm.
don't know if you're still here, but I will hit you up.
Oh, yeah. Well, you'll be there. You'll be at his then on
Yeah, I hope so.
Tuesday. Okay. So have a good bank holiday weekend, everyone. Oh, I was going to do a Jerry Springer. Take care of yourself and each other.
Stay funky.
Stay funky.
Stay funky.
Stay funky. And
Yeah.
as I always say, keep it real and keep smiling. Ciao, ciao. And stay funky.